This is Vikcast. It's a Viking thing.
Rosslager.
Shield wall!
All of my life, and all of your lives, have come to this point. There is nowhere else to be but here.
No, I always knew I would love these Northmen.
This is Vikcast with Clive Standen and Amy Bailey.
And as the King of Wessex and King of Bretwalda, all of England, I order you to listen to Vikcast. It's a Viking thing.
The podcast direct from Valhalla.
Hi everyone, I'm George Blagden and I play Athelstan on Vikings, and you should tune into this incredible podcast, Vikcast. It's a Viking thing.
This is Vikcast.
Hello, I am Alyssa Sutherland, and this is Vikcast. It's a Viking thing.
Hi there, this is Kevin Durand. This is Harvard the Wanderer. You're listening to Vikcast. This is a Viking thing.
Hey guys, this is Alexander Ludwig here, and this is Vikcast. It's a Viking thing.
Hi, I'm Maud Hurst. I play Helga on Vikings, and this is Vikcast. It's a Viking thing. Come join us. Skull!
I'm Morgane, and I play Princess Gisla. You're listening to Vikcast. It's a Viking thing.
So this week on Vikcast, we have Morgane Polanski. She studied at the International School of Paris, the Drama Centre London, and the Central School of Speech and Drama. She's a director, actor extraordinaire, and my wife in Vikings. Hey Morgane, how you doing?
I'm good. I'm really good. Yeah, what an introduction.
Morgane, how long has it been since we all saw you? I'm trying to think.
How long has it been? It hasn't been since season 3.
I saw you in Cannes at Cannes Film Festival a little bit after we wrapped, but I haven't seen you since then. What about you and Clive? You guys seen each other?
Yeah, what year did we wrap?
I can't remember. It's crazy. Season 4.
2015.
Yeah.
Ooh, I can't swear. 6 years.
You can say what you want on this show. You can swear, you can curse, you can just be you. Beauty of a podcast.
Yeah, I do swear a lot, unfortunately. 6 years. No, I think that's when the last time I saw you, Clive.
Well, baby, Queen, welcome to the show. We're super excited to talk to you about Gisla, I guess, because, I saw you, of course, a lot behind the scenes, but I never got to work with her, because our storylines never crossed, which is very strange. But I did adore you, so it's super fun to be able to talk to you about your character. And I'm really curious to talk to you and Clive about your relationship, both as on screen and off, because that was fun.
Yeah, I do. I actually I'm really grateful how under your wing you took me when I arrived. When I was just a little scared little girl. Now I'm a scared old girl.
What was the first scene you filmed? What was the first scene that you actually had on set?
Yeah, I was thinking about this, and I still, because Vikings was the self-tape I did was, I think, the first self-tape I've ever done in my life.
What?
And I recorded. I was still in 3rd year in drama school, and I recorded it. In between, because we were rehearsing the final play, and I remember we had this like music rooms downstairs that had like a red background, and I just literally in between class just asked one of my classmates to read with me, and I remember my agent coming back to me saying they really like your tape, but they asked 2 things. Could you do it on a white background? And could you do it with someone who reads flat? Obviously, it was like the person was reading the King, and obviously he was another student from drama school, so he thought it was his moment as well. So I, now having done a few tapes, I'm like, yep. White background, not red. So no, and so the first, and
it is funny as well, isn't it, when you've got someone behind the camera who's like taking it so seriously, and it's like, who is that person? It's like, it's just the most off-putting thing.
Royal Central School of Speech and Drama, and also there were people in the background just warming up for a show, and I was like, anyway, but the first scene, and I will remember this because as I arrived, because that was one of my first tape, I think. as I arrived, I had huge imposter syndrome for a long time, and my first scene was literally, I remember me with that blue outfit with 300 extras in the church, and I said something, "Hail the King" or something like that. I can't remember, and they just suddenly heard action, and there was those 300 extras and me there, and I was like, what?
And that's it. Most of your big scenes were always in this ginormous court, either in the cathedral for the wedding, or it was just in the court with Lothar Bluetooth, who played Charles.
Yeah,
It's never a quiet moment.
And actually, that take that we did, where with the banner "Citizens of Paris," because that was my take was actually at the end of the day, and that was like a one take. And
wow.
Yeah,
you did it in one take?
Well, yeah, because by the time there was so much to cover, by the time it got to me, it was the lights were going. So
wow. But listen, first self tape, get the job. First day on set, one take wonder. I think you're meant for this.
I thought my life was going to continue like that from then on, but actually, do you know, I had to learn that. You know, I was like, oh, done, easy that this audition thing. Yep, no.
Yeah. I remember as well, though, when you first joined the cast, because we talked to Alyssa about this too, and she, even though she joined a completely different a couple of years before you, but she still had the same indoctrination that she joined just as the famous Viking quiz night was on, which is, you know, we'd have this quiz night every kind of couple of months to raise money for different charities, but the whole crew, all the cast, half of Bray in Ireland turned up to our quiz nights, and they were infamous. When I remember that was one of your first days when I really got to hang out with you for the first time.
Yeah,
met all the drunk Vikings.
But actually, because I arrived, I'll tell you what it was. Because I arrived at the end of the season, I arrived at episode 7.
Yeah.
So that's where I think I remember arriving and just being like, asking the drivers like, "Where's everyone?" and
drinking.
Yeah, because kind of we were all spread out, and I think it was towards the end of the season, and then I remember having that quiz night. And then that was the first time I had everyone gathered together, and I was like, "Oh, that is wild."
What did you think? What were your first impressions? Did you think people were crazy?
My first impressions were quite felt like cause I think I was kind of scattered because we're all in different hotels, and then the first just good vibes, like everyone was just it was just really joyful, like really joyful. And I just have best memories, fondest memories.
That was what's so nice about the Viking filming in Ireland, is that they would try and make an effort to always finish. I mean, the crew would like not have a lunch break because they would want to be able to put their children in bed at night. So we try and work through that day just an hour quicker, just so we had a chance of finishing by 7 or 8 o'clock at night. We'd work earlier if we had to, but it also enabled us all to kind of socialize together as well. It's not like you were finishing at 11 o'clock at night and getting up at 4 in the morning. So we were really able to bond as a group, and because we filmed 3 episodes at the same time, the schedules were all out. So we could, we could.
And it was nice, like always. It's so true. I became close to a few people that I actually just never shot with. I guess people get close to who lives where. And I was at the Royal Marine, and my housemates. I guess it was like my closest experience in living in dorms.
Yes, it was.
I was with Eddie and Hugh actually, and they kind of became my we're just kind of with them. I was just kind of with them all the time. And then I remember because I was doing kind of the scenes and then coming back to London and doing this back and forth. I remember by the I don't know 10th time, we Eddie and I were just like we'd done every single room of the hotels, so we kept being like, could I please be in 209? we literally kind of turn around and like go check each other's room to see which one. Oh, that one with the corner. Oh yeah, that's
You're like
you
Mr. and Mrs. Smith of Ireland. You look like you should have written a book about the hotel concierge and things, and just kind of checked out every single hotel.
Literally, a lot of baby showers and stuff happening in that hotel.
Yeah, listen, because Gisla is a firecracker, right, of a character. She really is fun to play. I mean, she's no wallflower, put it that way. And there's a lot of princesses that have been written in these historical dramas that you really are just kind of, very pretty princesses who have really nothing to say. And Michael's such a great writer. What does it feel like to work with Michael? And did he kind of set you up on the right start? I mean, did you talk a lot before you started filming about where Gisla was going to go? Because she's not actually documented very much in history, so it gives you free reign. And obviously the original Gisla that they do talk about in history books is about 14 years old. So
Yeah.
I mean, did Michael talk to you a
12
lot about
or
her?
Yeah. It was actually because we did chat quite a bit before, but it was more as I was getting the scripts, and it was like, especially now I realize, such a luxury of a part, because got to wear the princess outfits, but yet the content and the sort of the character was so meaty and so like feminist for even now, but for that time very feminist, and sort of really there was so much material to play with and so many layers, and she was so bold and brave, and sort of the father was quite more laid back and a bit more lethargic, I would feel, and she was and that was just such a luxury for not even a female part, but like for being a princess. It's not the ordinary princess that just sits there and waits for Prince Charming, I think she really and what led her is caring for the people, and being having the strength to be the face to sort of like represent the country, because so
because that's the first time we see her as well, don't we? The king wants to go and hide off in the chambers, and she wants to stay with the people and show the support. And even when the Vikings start to kind of siege the towers and come up the walls, then she wants to get out there. It's the Oriflame, and she wants to kind of rally the troops to kind of just give one last rally. And she's there at front and center while her father's just sneaking away to hide.
And being actually taking stuff in her own hands, and being just being like so brave, and sort of but I think like when I think caring for the country and being the face of the people is just more important than anything else. There's no question of in her mind. There's no other way than doing that, I think, and and even like in that scene in the what was the scene that we shot when going through the I just remember the closeness of the people, and her really always going, like physically going there, was
physically touching them and letting them know. And he's wearing the mask the whole time. That's the bit I remember. He wears the mask and no one knows it's him, and she's walking through the streets with her mask off, so everyone knows that this is the princess she's showing us. It's a show of strength and support, and that's very rare at those times.
And also, not like show. Reminds me, it's completely different. I'm not comparing her to Lady Diana, but like when Lady Diana hugged the first person with AIDS, right? And it's like I can touch you. You're not, we're the same sort of thing. Whereas the father's quite hypochondriac and very in his own pain. I
I
would
love that
say.
because I feel like all of the Viking female characters, they were afforded that. They were afforded the luxury of being strong and independent and being able to be willful, but your character was, I mean, women did not hold that same position. So for her to jump out of the mold at 12 or 14 years old, I don't know how old you were supposed to be on the show, but you were young, to be able to do that and stand up against her father was pretty radical, I think.
Yeah, and it was actually quite. I'm naturally, as Morgan, um, person that gets quite frustrated with people that just sit back and just take no action. I want to go and shake them, and if they don't do it, I take stuff in my own hands. So it was quite easy to find them, the motivation to connect with her reasoning. It's like there's no other question. I just can't bear like lethargy, like, oh, I'm so scared, and I'm fucking get a move on and just make it. I'm very like practical in the way that there's a problem or there's people that need help. Then what do you do? Let's just stop discussing and let's start doing
Direct action, yeah.
Yeah.
And she does that as well. I mean, she can be quite, and she is quite Viking, though. I mean, she can be ruthless. There's that scene where they capture Sethred, and Charles is listening to all of his advisors and mainly the church. And that's the thing; she didn't need to listen to anyone. She knew herself and she knew her will. And Charles is trying to make Sethred as a ransom to Ragnar and kind of release him. And doesn't Gisela just goes, no, chop his head off, kill him. He's a scum. And she just does it, and takes over. So she can be cold and ruthless. And again, she when they were attacking, she gives the knives to all of her maidens, and she's like, if you need them, you kill yourself. You do not let them take your virginity. And she's.
And I think that comes, when you don't have, or if your, father does not do this for you, you learn early on how to do it for yourself, especially as a woman. But I feel like nowadays we are encouraged to do so, whereas back then it's just insane to think of that someone would be brave enough to do that. Bear in mind, I can connect to that, but I've been brought up in, the 21st century. I don't know how I'd be if I was born back then,
I always wonder that because my character was pretty feisty too for her position, and I often wonder. I don't know if Amy would be so ballsy. I'd like to think I was, but I've had a pretty easy life compared to those ladies from the olden days.
It reminds me of the scene where she gives the daggers to her maidens. I think I remember talking to Michael. That actually comes. There's some documentation to think that the phrase "cut your nose off to spite your face" comes from the Vikings, because there was this documented event where the Vikings were raiding and they came across a nunnery. And the nuns were terrified, and then they had reports that the Vikings were coming up the hill and they were going to burn down the monastery and steal everything and rape everyone inside. And the Mother Superior turned around to all the nuns and she gave them knives and she said, "You want you to cut the end of your nose off and cut your lip, and then the Vikings, when they see you, they'll be so despised by your looks that you'll keep your virginity intact." And they went, because it belongs to God. So all of these nuns went and they cut the ends of their noses off and they split their lips and they tried to make themselves look as ugly as possible, blood pouring down everywhere. Apparently, when the Vikings slammed open the doors to this nunnery, they took one sight of these nuns and then they burned the whole nunnery down. So they may have protected their virginity, but they cut their nose off to spite their face because they died anyway. It's probably not a true story, but it's one of those ones that's such a great thing, and that's it pays homage to that as well, with Gisla kind of giving out all these knives to her maidens.
I didn't know that story.
I'm just a nerd.
You are.
I read too many books.
You're the best kind of nerd. When we get on before we start recording, Clive goes, and this story, and I got to get this historical story, and this, and I'm always like, yes, good, because this is what makes it fun.
I remember there was a book called Brewer's Phrase and Fable that my mum gave me for for Christmas one year when I was younger, and it's basically all of those kind of where the origins of any phrase comes from or anything that, you know, whether it comes from Shakespeare or whether it comes from an old wives' tale. And I read it like it was the dictionary. So I'm like that. I am that guy at the pub quiz. I know a lot about nothing.
About to say. I was like, were you number one at the pub quiz? Because naturally in pub quiz, I remove myself because I'm like, you know, this is just the time for people to realize how little facts I know. I'll talk to you about emotional, you know, attachment styles and stuff like that. But little facts, I'm like, I
know a lot about nothing and nothing about a lot. That's the way I put it.
I don't think that's true.
Morgane, following on from your comment about being emotional, the wedding scene. You guys filmed the wedding scene, and Clive said that you'd never been to a real wedding, but you had to sob your heart out all the way down the aisle. Like, just from an acting point of view as well, I think it's interesting for people to understand, like, how do you get yourself, you've never been to a wedding, you've never been a wife, you've never been betrothed to someone you hate, I assume, maybe. But, you know, when they yell action, how do you pour on the tears and get yourself to that place? And not only that, how do you do it 10 times in a row, take after take after take?
I've been to weddings since actually, but I've never been a wife. But I've been, luckily, I've been actually on the back of Viking, right before Vikings. I know, yes, and stuck in something I didn't want to be, and I, you know, often. I feel like the more I try and imagine what would work for me, get stuck in my head, the least it works. And actually, when you are in a costume, when I'm actually trying to just believe the truth that's actually just there, which is like we're in a church, like I have everything's there. If I actually just believe that the situation is as it is, I find this easier to connect to than trying to just put imagery everywhere, because it's just there and you just kind of have to be obviously you know, being like walking down the aisle and having kind of like Clive look at me wouldn't put me in the state that it would put me in the show. But if I just believe her truth and what that means to her, and you know, this is a woman who not even has her father just not even considered it twice to just like give her away without even consulting her. Like the pain of that already, the it's like, you know, pimping me out kind of thing. Like I, you know, exchange you against some like camels. The reason I'm saying this is because we went once with my dad to to Egypt, and he was offered to exchange me through camels, and I just thought, wouldn't that be great? Him back at Charles de Gaulle Airport. Where's Morgan? But no, I got loads of camels. Anyway,
oh my God, are you serious? How old were you? Was this like, were you
I
grown?
was actually really young. I was actually 12 or 13.
Oh,
and we went
God.
to the souk in Marrakesh, and was offered to trade me for camels. Anyway, the reason that's what made me think of that, but and just seeing, you know, at that time, you know, they hadn't cleaned up the Viking look to try and impress me. And he was wearing this were you wearing this huge fur?
Yeah, massive
fur. You literally looked
made
like
me
a
look
bear.
double the size. Yeah,
exactly. It looked like a bear, and I'm thinking like, I'm just not trying to think as Morgan. I'm thinking in like, you know, what is this like animal gonna do to me? No, because it looks like, and I'm just trying to also just not think in my sort of well-traveled bubble of things I've seen in Morgan's life, you know, but actually what she's seen and what she's imagined, and imagination is the worst place to be. Rather, you know, so that's kind of, I don't know if that answered the question, but I just kind of tried to just go with that.
I've got your quote from the scene before when you first meet Rollo for the first time, and walk in and I say je suis Soulou, and then you say, because it was subtitled, you see, so you said it in French, but I love this is Gisela. This sums up who Gisela is. Whatever my father says, I am not marrying this animal. I am a princess of the blood, not a cheap whore. I would rather be burned alive than suffer this thing to so much as lay a hand on me. He is a filthy pagan. Therefore he has no soul. He is worse than the beasts of the field. I would rather my virginity and my virtue to the vilest dog than to this piece of warm meat. He disgusts me. He makes me want to vomit.
Do you know what? Can
At
I
least
tell
she
you?
says I was warm.
Can I tell you this thing? Like, so this was old Frank, right? And I locked myself in this hotel room for like, I don't know, when the second I was given that amount of text, because people were like, oh, you're French, it's fine. I'm like, hey mate, no. This is old Frankish does not sound anything like French. And it's literally like learning some sounds, but
it's really Germanic.
Completely. So for me, already my way of being is when action is called, do I need to know my lines inside out. I need to not think about them. They need to not be in my prefrontal cortex, but they need to be back there, and so I can have them fresh. So I was like, oh my God, I have this huge thing. Everyone's going to look at me. So my already stress is going to be high, but I need to just know this. Like, and I remember like just locking myself and going over and over and like waking up in the night and then going over and over and over until to now, quelque dit m'espère tel bestaille me rendrait mis à père. And that I remember just like just going over and over. And because I did that, I had freedom within that scene to really just kind of, it's odd speaking in a language that you can't understand but can understand the meaning of it. Yes. I mean, yeah, you guys do.
I remember just thinking, this is the first time I'd acted opposite you, and I remember thinking, we're going to have some fun. So feisty. Yeah, it was great to watch. Yeah. And we did, right? I mean, let's talk about how they fell for each other, because we had some fun scenes. We had the wedding, which was just traumatic, with your dad pushing your head back down and things. And then there was the wedding night. Remember that scene? When you get the dagger out and you're trying to kind of threaten me with the dagger.
But also, I was like, yo, you like were there like perfectly ripped, and then I'm there crying. I'm like, that I was like, that felt that was I was trying to act scared opposite you, but you kind of seemed just really sweet,
How long had you guys because people often ask actors like how weird it is to do sex scenes. The answer is super weird, but sometimes it's even weirder because you've only just met. Like, how long had you and Clive known each other?
We were so lucky that I remember those 2 episodes were directed by Helen, and we had a lovely rehearsal. Do you remember that?
Yeah.
Just us at her house, and it was like it was such a great way to kind of break the ice rather than do it the first time with the crew, and to kind of choreograph it as you'd choreograph a dance. So you kind of get there and get past that awkward phase. I felt. I don't know how you felt.
Yeah. Well, and Helen just doesn't let you get awkward. And that's what I love about her. This is the biggest compliment to her. And because sometimes I might come out heavy-handed with my words, but I mean this is the biggest compliment to her. Because I remember when I did my fight with Alex Ludwig in The Rain, she directed that one. That's the thing for you. Women directors, in my experience, especially from Vikings, are so much better at directing the fight scenes. Because she gets down, and she'll get down, and she wanted me to wrestle, and she's getting down in the mud, in the rain. She goes, Clive, come down here. And she's like, she jumps at me. She goes, I want you to just leap at him like this. And she leapt on me, and she's throwing herself around the mud, and she's getting soaked. And then when you're working with a director like that, and I remember in one of our love scenes, when we go away to the pantry, she's literally like, grab him and kiss him. And she just grabbed me, and she's kissing me. And I'm like...
But I'll tell you what, weirdly, the losing virginity scene for me was easier to do, because in that moment Clive Rollo was the one leading the dance. I just had to follow. Whereas in the other scene, I'm now, I had a taste of Rollo, and I'm the one being like, come on.
Yeah.
And I have to lead him. And I find this like really to be the alpha in that, really sort of, I'm all shy. So I was like, doing it. And she just went, Morgan, and that's what you do. And I was like,
Yeah, I remember, didn't she
thanks,
said, like, well, you don't just push her, you sweep it off, and she's sweeping all of the stuff off the table, and she's like, and then you just grab her and throw her on the table. It's like, she just does it. So once the director has done it and shown no fear, then it's like the gauntlet is thrown down, and that's what I love about Helen Shaver. She comes to take no prisoners.
Literally, she just sort of removed that awkward thing, you know?
Yeah.
Because I was kind of like half doing it, you know? And also, I was like, I've always dreamt of like swishing stuff up the table. Yeah, so that was great to work with her, and I felt, you know, so safe, and so I feel really safe with you, Clive, actually. I must tell you that.
I love you guys. Have excellent chemistry. I mean, I know you both as close friends, but it's really, really fun when you know people behind the scenes. And then, because of course I didn't know what you were filming, so I didn't see all that stuff you shot till a year later after I'd been friends with you, and I watched those episodes. I was like, you guys are kind of hot together. Like, this is really, really good. You had beautiful chemistry.
Well, do you know what, Amy, as well, is that Morgan had joined the cast, so she was new and she was nervous and she's kind of almost, you know, segregated in a way, but so was I, because I had spent 3 whole seasons of being one of the Vikings, you know, nearly every scene I had with Travis Fimmel or Ragnar or Floki or Björn, and then suddenly Rollo has been thrown into this new world. So that's one thing as the actor. But I had no more scenes with those guys. So they would get up to whatever they wanted to do on days where they were filming on Viking boats and when they were in England. And I was just suddenly with Morgan and Hugh and the Frankish court. So I kind of suddenly was latching to Morgan as well. So we kind of had to bond because we had our own. We used to joke about it sometimes, didn't we? It's like we had our own story going on. We had our own thing. We didn't know what they were up to. Sometimes we'd meet down the pub and it would be like it was them and us. It was weird because they had no idea what we got up to.
It really was. Yeah, it really was, and you really as well. Like, you made me feel so included and like kind of like, yeah, really kind of took me under your wing as well. And we just, I think, you know, like had loads of fun and like just played. And I think, you know, the first like episodes in season 3, and I really feel like really in season 4 when sort of for me the first time she's falls for Rollo, is when he's like kind of just tried to learn her language. It's like, this is like, you know, people say that there's 5 different love languages, right? And one is what's the
there's acts of service, there's gifts, there's physical touch,
and gifts that, but like stuff that has meaning or something like that. And the fact that he went and learned, and actually now we're not able to communicate. And you know, you chop your hair, you try to make you look well. What I love is sort of they made me rougher and they made you softer, and we sort of had the same haircut.
It was kind of like opposites attract, and then somehow they just molded into the right. Because that's when I remember going back to that the wedding night scene as well, because that's when it first started, and that's when I realized that you were bringing out some real comedy in my character that I didn't know was there, because I talked to Michael Hurst about it, and there's a play called Translations by Brian Friel, and it's about this Irish woman that speaks Gaelic and an English soldier, and they fall in love over an orange. But he's saying one thing about an orange, and she can't understand what he's saying, so she's mistranslating everything. So when he's being tender, she thinks he's angry at her, and that's the kind of same as our scene. Is that I didn't realize it until on the day when Rollo's being really tender and saying, "I'm not going to hurt you," in the out, but because he's so big and because the Old Norse language is so rough sounding, she thinks his intentions are bad. And then and the same with you, and this mistranslation brought out so much comedy, and it just went from that from there. I was like, wow, this is going to be fun for me. It's going to like to actually find
isn't this
the light
loss
and shade.
in translation such the cause of so many miscommunication, even in relationships? When we speak the same language, we just have different love languages or different acts, and actually I just that for me was like that for me really represented what it does mean sometimes when we are and even speak the same English, you know?
I think Rollo as well starts off doing all this stuff because he realizes that he thought it was going to be easy, right? They come to his tent in the winter camp and they're like, "Hey, we're going to offer you all this land, and then we're gonna give you this beautiful princess to marry if you betray your brother." And it's like, cha-ching, brilliant. And he thinks it's going to be easy, but he hasn't thought about how he can't even communicate with this new race of people. He can't, how can he exact his authority and everything if he can't really communicate? So when he gets in the court, I think there's a lot of things where he slowly starts to try and dress, he cuts his hair. He's doing it for Gisla, but I think at the beginning he's doing it for his own purpose. It's typical Rollo, right? He's like, I need to do this, otherwise my brother's going to come back and I'm not going to be there, and they're going to kick me out, and then then he's stuck in the middle. He's going to, his brother's going to want to kill him, and Charles is going to kill him. But then I think something happens on the way, because Rollo has been scarred by Siggy, because Siggy, it was a marriage of convenience. She needed power, and she saw Rollo as this brother of Ragnar, and she could get the power back that she lost when she had Earl Haraldsson. And she's like, well, she will just manipulate him, this blunt object, this blunt instrument. And he kind of needed that be pushed in the right direction. So she's his puppet master. But I think along the line, Rollo kind of fell for Siggy, and there was nothing reciprocated. It was just a transaction for Siggy. And it hurt him. So when he goes into this, he's not in it. But I think this is what Gisla brought out of Rollo. She actually made him fall in love for the first time in his life. She softened him. And that's what happened. And what I love is that scene where Lothar, Charles is on the throne, and he actually says, what happens when your brother returns? Will you betray us? Is this all been a ruse to kind of get him into the gates again? And Rollo looks at Gisla. And he genuinely, for the first time, I think, I tried to play it for the very first time. It's like Floki always used to say, the warrior never reveals his act. The warrior doesn't reveal his heart until the axe reveals it. And it's truly the first time. And he said, and that line that Floki says to Björn is about Rollo, about Uncle Rollo. And this is truly the first time he does that. And he answers the king and he says, I will never betray you. I'm here. And it's because of Gisla. He's in love. He's finally, and Lagertha is a distant memory, and he's fallen in love.
I do think opposites attract, and you need some common ground, but opposites attract, and I think they become a team, and they become each other. And I think because she is so independent, and had to sort stuff out on her, take matter in her own hands, she thought she didn't need anyone. So I feel there's an equal sort of balance, which I think is beautiful. And healthy.
What was it like, Morgane? You got to stand up on top of the battlements and watch the siege, the Vikings come and take Paris. And what was it like, actually? Tell the fans what it was like, because the battle scenes are incredible and beautiful and gory and amazing when you see them on your TV. But what was it like to actually be there on set and look down and watch it happening?
It was a lot of green screen. But yeah, I was like so impressed by the stunts, I must say. But when it was a lot shorter than what it looked like in in the episode, and yeah, a lot of green screen, but a lot of I'm getting everything. I'm trying to remember. I'm getting everything mixed up.
Well, it was green screen because we had to recreate an island city that had not been seen for nearly 1,000 years. Because Paris really wasn't what Paris is now.
It was so funny because when I saw it, I was like, oh my god, that's l'Île Saint Louis, where now Parisians kind of like most people live there, but like it's a lot quite touristic. And I guess, and so if you see l'Île Saint Louis, it's what Paris was, which was I learned that. I should probably listen more in school, but yeah,
because it was an island. It was an island connected by 2 bridges. Because Clive, the history nerd, wants to say it's because Charlemagne was the main ruler at the beginning of the Frankish Empire. There was no such thing as France. And Charlemagne was crowned by the Romans and Pope Louis III, I think, on Christmas Day in the 800s. And then, it became, because of Charlemagne and his knowledge from the Romans, he got all of the best scholars, artists, musicians, and that they all wanted to come to Francia. So the trade was amazing, and it was full of wealth, and they had gilded gold and mosaic marble floors and stained glass windows, and unlike anything these Vikings had seen. But because of this culture that was thriving, there would be kings. King Egbert himself came and took salvage under the Charlemagne as a kid, because all these wealthy kings or would-be kings would come, to kind of try and make allegiances with the Frankish court. But it made it like impenetrable. It was this just ginormous city that was surrounded by the River Seine, that was almost impossible to kind of infiltrate, and the Vikings were the first to kind of go this way. So, I mean, that's why it was the only set that we really had where we had to use green screen and things, because there was just you couldn't build such a vast, kingdom.
I remember doing the idea. When I did the ADR and discovered the shots for the first time, I was like, wow, this is not what I imagined. This is sublime. So stunning. You always wish when it's green screen, you kind of try and picture it in your head, but it's never really what it's.
Yeah, I was gonna say your earlier comment about saying like, I can reach these emotions because everything is there, and I look around and everything is there. But when you're in green screen, it's really weird. Hard.
Really, yeah, really weird.
Those scenes were amazing the siege scenes, because usually when you invite guests to set, or when people ask you what it's like to be on a film set, it's like, it's hurry up and wait. It's just like watching paint dry. There's nothing going on. It's like, you think it's going to be exciting, but it's just hours and hours of waiting around. But during those episodes, it was like setting things on fire, hundreds of berserkers going up the siege towers.
If you want to impress anyone, invite them during that time. But actually, I must say, on a show like Vikings, it was moving quite quickly. All the time. Well, I actually did hurry up and wait a long time. At some point, I didn't make it to my costumes some days.
Yeah.
What you've been on sets since the age of 9, and do you feel like when you walk onto a set now that you feel pretty experienced every time, or do you know what to expect, or did you find Vikings very different from any of the other sets you've worked on?
I find Vikings very different because it was my first time on a TV show, especially of that scale, and usually you have like one director, and you're there from the beginning. And I arrived not at the beginning of the season, sort of at the episode 7, and you kind of you have actors that have been playing this character for a while, and directors that kind of come and kind of change, and then you have blocks kind of mixing. So that was a whole new world to me. Then sort of a set with one person sort of like guiding. So that was really different, and the scale of everything was. I was never on sets with so much action stuff. So yeah, I mean, and also I was not used to working with 3 cameras.
Right.
I remember at the beginning I was like, oh, so there's a camera, okay. And then halfway through the scene I'm like, fuck, there's one there. Shit.
Where do I look? It's terrible.
ABC situation was kind of new to me.
Yeah, right.
But I guess you only learn on the job.
Yeah, you learn fast.
Yeah.
Trial by fire, I know. Yeah.
Joan Bergen always said that you brought the haute couture to the show. And she would talk about how she designed some of the costumes with you, and to have like a little male influence in there to kind of show this kind of undercurrent of this girl that won't be tamed and things. Can you talk about some of the costumes you wore and kind of how they designed? Because I know you're big on fashion anyway. You are. Morgane herself is kind of very haute couture.
Yeah, you're pretty cool. You're very cool.
I'm really haute couture in my trackies right now. No, I'll tell you what was the costumes. First of all, were sublime. The work they were doing were absolutely outstanding. Every fitting I would go to, it was just and it was amazing to have those trousers on. Those trousers. trousers underneath the sort of dress, because it does give you. And I'll tell you, at the beginning, Gisla is, sort of battling on her own, and I would have those really heavy cloaks and those crowns and all this how like royalty kind of feels like they have to carry the world on their shoulder, because you just can't really move and you have to stand like this. And actually Helen was so good with this, because usually the go-to when you have those sort of costumes and you're playing historical is to sort of play like robot stiff. And Helen really sort of made me find the human in her, because I often feel with period, I'm trying to be just to the period, and by being just to the period, I don't want to be modern in my emotion, if that makes any sense. And yeah, even gestures and like, and
Right.
so
Yeah,
the,
yeah,
the
yeah.
costumes
Even
help so much with
gestures.
the storyline, because she has all this
Yeah.
stuff to carry the beginning. And I love the scene in the night with the cloak, and then, as the haircut was huge, which they, the reason I cut my hair was for the show, and I haven't really grew them since. And having and then I had much less to, after losing the virginity and being married, much less to carry on, and much more free and much looser and
Yeah, I wanted to ask,
or less trapped. Yeah.
when you see us in season 4, we've got 3 children: William, Marcellus, and Chelsea, I think it was. And you're very much the mother, and Rollo decides to go on one last quest, and she says, that she would, if she knew her kids were Vikings, she would murder them, and that angers Rollo. And Rollo says, you don't get it. When you hear thunder, it's only thunder. When I hear thunder, it's Thor beating his anvil. But he goes, and the very last time you see Rollo and Gisla, she kind of seemingly looks like she takes him back, but she punches him in the face. She gives him a good old right hand on the nose. And you kind of get a sense that there's a lot of work to be done. But I wanted to ask,
I think she would.
they ended up. What do you think? Do you think she would have taken him back after that?
I think she would, and I think she would. Maybe she wouldn't if they didn't have kids. But I think when you have children, well, I don't know because I don't have children, but I think she would, but on sort of with strong boundaries of what making him work hard for it, and if that didn't work out, I don't know. Yeah, I want to think that she would at least try and give it a shot. What do you think?
Well, I know, because you do. That's the last time you see Gisla. That's why I was wondering, because you do see Rollo again. He comes back and does a deal with Ivar, and he's a lot older. And I always thought, well, where's Gisla in this equation? Did she just let him? Is it just business? Does it come to that, or are they just that couple that kind of sleep in separate beds and never really speak to each other? They just keep up appearances. But I think he was madly in love with her. I think that was part of the to and fro. The two opposites attract. Yeah, she sharpened that blunt instrument.
Yeah, I want to believe that she did, but
yeah,
I don't want to believe the reality.
Morgane, you are not only a talented actress, but you are a director in your own right. Tell us what you've been up to since the fans saw you on screen in Vikings. What have you been doing?
Well, I have my production company with my dearest best friend Serena, and I directed a short film without her, and then I did we created our production company, the Stroke Productions, on the back of our first short that we did together called The Stroke, which actually Eddie is in.
Cool.
And then sort of made a few short films from then on, and actually right before the pandemic, I was finishing up our last film that is now going into the festival circuit, and it's called Through the Looking Glass, and it features British actress called Dame Sean Phillips, and I'm really Serena wrote it, and we got Maria Grazia from Dior to make the costumes, and it really is about like woman and sort of I want to think of a modern version of Snow White, and if you were 85-year-old, what would you tell to your 25-year-old self? we say it's a pity youth is lived by young people, and I wonder if that's a sort of cycle of life. So, yeah. So that's what I've been up to, and then I shot something that's like so different and such a different scale. British independent film called Looted, and we shot it in Hartlepool for 17 days. It's been released this year, and it's doing quite well, and it's completely sort of like coming of age story, and brilliant director Renee Panavis was just amazing, and it's with Thomas Sturgoose and Charlie Palmer Rothwell, and I play the Polish girl who moved to England, and they steal cars, and they dropped out of school, and they're just kind of just trying to survive.
Sounds pretty Viking to me.
Yeah, well, it was a lot of improv and
Oh, I love it.
and
Nice.
not looking pretty and not like wearing tracksuits and just So yeah, and I had a small little role in the last Wes Anderson film. I forgot we shot that.
What? Just forgot you worked with Wes Anderson.
No, I didn't forget that. It's just the pandemic sort of like erased my whole mind. And
awesome.
That was amazing. So
well done.
Well, here's a question we ask everybody that comes on Vikcast. We want to ask you, if you can think of something off the top of your head, what is the most Viking thing you've ever done in your life?
So if you were standing at the gates of Valhalla and you could not get in until you credited yourself with the most Viking, aka badass, interesting, however you interpret it, what's the most Viking thing Morgane has ever done?
Oh my God! Wait! What's the most baddest thing I've ever done?
We've had all kinds of crazy answers. Sometimes, Linus cracked us up because he said the most Viking thing that he had done. He basically yelled at his neighbors because they shot a gun, and he not only sweet light. He went, "That's not cool.
That's not cool."
The most Viking thing I've done was actually I'm gonna do it, but I went paragliding, and I'm now going to go parachuting, but I've done that twice, so I guess.
Wow.
And maybe the most Viking thing I've done is not let people walk over me.
Yes. Well, there you go. Bravo.
Just tell them what's up,
There, you heard it from Morgane Polanski herself. One of the most Viking things that you can do, people, is not let anyone walk all over you. Boom.
Skull to that. Skull! Hey, before you go, I just been reminded of one little story, actually, that I don't think the fans know about, and I'm not sure if you know about it, Morgan, but I remember there was a scene where you get to meet Lagertha. There's a scene where Rollo and Gisla talk about Lagertha. It's on the aftermath of the beach.
When we walk on the beach, yeah.
Yeah, and she says, will I ever meet her? And I say, maybe you will one day. And that was in there because Michael actually did write a scene for Gisla and Lagertha to meet. Before the battle, we'd been fighting on the barges. They were going to try one last chance at a truce. Ragnar and Rollo were going to talk face to face, and they were going to have their, Lagertha was going to be on one side of the Ragnar, and then Gisla was going to be right there front and center with Rollo because, they're the power couple. They negotiate together. But I think because of the logistics of the barges, because it costs so much money to get those barges on the water and have the battle and have all those extras, and also because I think Michael thought it was probably more powerful to have the brothers only see each other for the first time in battle, which he's probably right. The scene was cut from the script, so I got to read this beautiful scene where Gisla and Lagertha kind of eye each other up. And they never made it into the show.
I didn't know that. Why tell me now? That's like even worse. Shoulda, coulda, woulda.
Shoulda, coulda, woulda.
Amazing. Well, it's so good to chat to you guys, and thank you for doing this, and lots of love.
Love you, sweetheart. We'll keep you posted, all right, babe?
Please do. Bye. Take care.
See you,
love
Morgan.
You.
Bye.
Ciao.
Safe and sane. Bye.
Yes.
This is Vikcast. It's a Viking thing. With Clive Standen and Amy Bailey. Follow the Vikings on Vikcast Official.